Ethan Cole built an empire from nothing. 3 years, 200 employees. One dream. He gave all of it to a woman named Claire. He didn't know that on the same night his company's accounts went silent. Claire was in a penthouse across town, laughing in another man's arms. His name was Damon Reyes. Ethan's phone buzzed once. A single text. "We need to talk. It's over, Ethan. I'm with someone who can actually give me a life." He didn't know it yet, but the woman who broke his heart was about to become the reason he'd own the world. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan Cole was a name people respected. Cole Dynamics, a logistics and freight tech company he'd built from a garage to a 9-figure valuation. Then the calls started. Vendors pulling out. Contracts under review. A quiet, coordinated unraveling that Ethan couldn't explain until it was too late to stop. He didn't know that Damon Reyes, Claire's new lover, sat on the board of one of Cole Dynamics' largest partners. He didn't know Damon had spent 6 months quietly convincing that partner to walk. By the time Ethan understood what was happening, the damage was done. Accounts frozen. Assets seized. The company he'd spent his 20s building, gone in under a month. Claire didn't wait for the wreckage to settle. She packed 2 suitcases while Ethan was at his lawyer's office, trying to salvage what was left. "I can't build a life with a man who has nothing left to offer, Ethan. I'm sorry. No, actually, I'm not." She left that night. Not a word about the years. Not a word about what they'd promised each other. Just silence and an empty apartment that used to be a home. Ethan Cole had nothing. No company. No home he could still call his own. No woman who claimed to love him. His bank account read $312 after building a company once worth over $90 million. Word spreads fast in his world. At an industry mixer, he wasn't even sure why he'd bothered attending. He heard his own name in a whisper, followed by laughter. That's the guy who lost everything. Even his girlfriend traded up. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He just walked out into the cold and let the city swallow him whole. That night, sitting on a mattress on the floor of an apartment he could barely afford, Ethan Cole made himself one quiet promise. "I will never be this powerless again." He didn't know that promise was about to become real, in a way no one could have imagined. At 3:47 in the morning, Ethan woke to a light that wasn't there before. A pane of pale blue light hovered in front of him, lines of text rendering themselves in the dark. Infinite reward system activated. Host identified. Ethan Cole. Condition met. Total betrayal by former partner. Total financial collapse. System bound. Function. Every dollar spent by Claire Bennett or Damon Reyes, sourced from assets connected to the host's downfall, will be converted into host's wealth and ownership. Ethan laughed. A short, broken laugh. He assumed grief had finally broken something in his mind. Then his phone buzzed. A notification. His account, the one that had read $312 hours earlier, now read $4,200. Somewhere across the city, Claire had just used Ethan's old company card, one she'd quietly kept active, to buy a designer bag for herself. $4,200. Every cent had followed an invisible thread back to him. Ethan didn't understand the rules yet, but he understood one thing clearly. The more Claire and Damon spent to celebrate what they'd taken from him, the richer he became. 2 weeks later, Damon Reyes bought Claire a car, a matte black convertible, financed through a shell company he controlled. The moment the payment cleared, Ethan's account grew by $81,000, and a small percentage of ownership in the dealership's parent holding company quietly transferred to a name Damon didn't recognize. Asset acquired. 4% equity. Prestige Motor Holdings. Total host net worth $1,204,000. Ethan watched the number rise and said nothing. He'd learned, already, the first rule of the system. Patience pays better than anger. Damon Reyes was not a careful man. He was hungry. The kind of hungry that mistakes recklessness for confidence. Within a month of moving in with Claire, he'd pitched a new investment fund to old contacts using Cole Dynamics' former client list, a list he'd stolen the week the company collapsed. Investors trusted him. He was charming. He was expensive. Expensive men are always trusted first and questioned last. Every dollar Damon funneled into that fund through accounts, vendors, and partners connected to Ethan's old company quietly rerouted a fraction of ownership back to Ethan. Claire, for her part, had fully embraced her new life: watches, jewelry, a stylist on retainer, a driver. She told her friends she'd finally found a man who knew how to build something real. One of them, quietly, asked where Damon's money actually came from. Claire didn't have an answer. She'd stopped asking questions the moment the gifts started. Ethan, meanwhile, lived like a man with nothing, because on paper, publicly, he still was. He kept the same small apartment, the same second-hand car. He let the world believe he'd disappeared. Behind the scenes, he used every dollar the system delivered to buy silent stakes, never his own name, always through shell entities in every company Damon touched. 3 months in, Damon had grown reckless with confidence. He leveraged his fund's holdings to acquire a logistics startup, ironically, one that used to be Cole Dynamics' biggest competitor. Asset acquired, 19% equity, Harrow Logistics Group, total host net worth, $24,300,000. Ethan now quietly owned nearly a fifth of the company that had helped bury his old one. To celebrate the fund's early success, Damon took Claire to a private island resort. He rented a villa for the week, one of the most expensive properties on the coast. The rental company processing that payment happened to be owned 3 layers deep by a holding company Ethan had quietly acquired 2 weeks earlier. He didn't plan that. The system had simply been doing its work patiently in the background for months. By month 5, Ethan Cole was worth more than Cole Dynamics had ever been. $41 million, silent stakes in 11 companies, 2 banks, a logistics network, a luxury property management firm. Claire posted photos from the island villa online. "Building an empire with my king," the caption read. She had no idea the man she'd left was now, quietly, the largest shareholder behind almost everything she was posing in front of. Ethan didn't feel rage anymore. Rage was loud, and loud men make mistakes. What he felt now was colder, quieter, patient. He wasn't building revenge. He was building a trap, and Damon Reyes was walking deeper into it every single day. By month 7, cracks began to show in Damon's fund. 2 of his early investments underperformed. Investors grew nervous. Damon did what reckless men do when confidence turns to fear. He borrowed more. Bigger loans, riskier bets, all to keep the illusion alive. Asset acquired. Senior debt position. Meridian Capital Partners. Debt value, $18,400,000. Control threshold reached, 63%. Ethan now controlled the majority of the debt, keeping Damon's entire operation afloat. He met quietly with a corporate attorney, someone with no ties to his old life. Together, they structured the final pieces. Full legal control of Damon's debt, his properties, and the fraudulent fund documents Damon didn't know existed in Ethan's records. Damon signed one more loan agreement that week, the final piece Ethan needed. He didn't recognize the name on the lending entity. He had no reason to. It was one of 43 shell companies, now quietly tied back to Ethan Cole. Claire, meanwhile, was planning the biggest night of their new life, an investor gala to formally launch Damon's fund to the wider market. She wanted the world to see what she'd built. Invitations went out to 200 of the city's wealthiest names. One of them, quietly, was addressed to a man neither of them expected to see again: Ethan Cole. The gala was everything Claire had dreamed of. Chandeliers, String quartet. 200 of the wealthiest people in the city, all there to celebrate Damon Reyes. Damon took the stage, champagne in hand, thanking his investors for believing in his vision. "This fund isn't just my legacy," he said. "It's proof that the right partner can build anything." Then the room noticed him. Ethan Cole, in a tailored suit no one had seen him wear in over a year, walked in like a man who belonged there. Because, legally, he owned more of that room than anyone in it. Claire's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. "Mind if I say a few words?" Ethan asked, taking the microphone from a stunned event coordinator, before Damon could answer. "Damon's right about one thing," Ethan began. "The right partner can build anything. Unfortunately for him, I've been his partner for the last 8 months. He just didn't know it." He nodded to the screen behind the stage. Documents began to appear. Ownership records, debt agreements, the shell companies. All of it, laid bare for 200 witnesses. "Every dollar you've spent the last 8 months," Ethan continued, looking directly at Damon, "every villa, every car, every loan, came from money I now control. You didn't build an empire, Damon. You built mine." The room fell into stunned silence, then a wave of urgent whispers. Investors reaching for phones, lawyers reaching for exits. Claire looked at Ethan the way she hadn't looked at him in over a year. Not with contempt, with fear. By morning, Damon's fund had collapsed. Investors pulled out overnight. His loans, all of them now called due by companies Ethan controlled, left him with nothing but debt. The island villa Damon had rented to impress Claire was repossessed within a week, through a property company Ethan had quietly owned for months. The private jet Damon leased for their escape from the fallout never left the runway. Ethan owned the leasing company too. Damon Reyes, the man who once believed charm and confidence were enough to build an empire, was left with exactly what he'd left Ethan with. Nothing. Claire didn't fare much better. Without Damon's collapsing fortune to fund her new life, and without the man she'd walked away from a year earlier, she found herself, once again, starting over, except this time with a public reputation in ruins. The scandal made headlines for weeks. Fraud fund collapses after betrayed ex-partner, reveals silent ownership. Her name was in every article, not as the woman who'd traded up, but as the woman who'd bet everything on the wrong man twice. Ethan Cole didn't gloat. He didn't need to. He simply walked through the halls of what remained of Meridian Capital, now fully under his control, and began rebuilding, this time on a foundation no one could quietly hollow out from beneath him. A year later, Ethan Cole's name was back, not as a cautionary tale, but as one of the fastest growing holding groups in the country. Cole Dynamics rose again, this time larger, and this time untouchable. Claire watched it happen from a distance, the way most people watch things they once had and let go of too easily. "I thought he had nothing left to offer," she admitted once, to no one in particular. "I was the only one who ended up with nothing at all." Ethan Cole never spoke about Claire or Damon again. He didn't need revenge stories to define him anymore. He simply built, quietly, patiently, permanently, the empire no one could ever take from him twice.